Hello, Meoni here, and welcome back to another video. I have the honor and privilege of sharing my thoughts and opinions on Final Fantasy XVI with you today, a game that I was invited, honored, and privileged to play last month at the courtesy of Square Enix. Down in London, we went to the Tower of London, a place I had never been before this event, and honestly, the setting really told you everything you need to know about the grandiose of Final Fantasy XVI. What you're about to see in this video is not my own footage. This is footage recorded by Square Enix employees, is not indicative of the final game, and indeed my own thoughts and opinions are my own, based on an unfinished version of the game from an earlier build. I will say, with that disclaimer out of the way, you're about to be blown away. In total then, I played around 7 or so hours of this game during the event. This featured separate segments of the game interwoven as sections of the main character Clive Rosefield's life. Without going into too much detail beyond the basic facts, you play as Clive in many of the time-jumped segments of his life throughout gameplay. It's essentially an interactive way to set in the events of the present, of which presumably you will play majoritively in the final version. These segments were not necessarily in the order that they will be in the final game, however, I enjoyed them nonetheless, and I thought that they were imperative to really understand the current sort of motives of the main character. The first major part we got to play as then was Clive as a child, or at least a young squireling. And as much as this footage might not cover everything I talk about over the top of it, I can assure you what I played featured incredibly eventful and integral cutscenes of the usual Final Fantasy fare, so expect big budget visuals, beautiful soundtracks, and really great voice acting. That's something I definitely want to stress throughout this video, is that the voice acting was chef's kiss. It was perfect.
The capital will lie exposed. And I doubt the Crusaders will wait for the good king's pawns to line up before taking to the board.
Some of these cutscenes were more cutesy than others, featuring my favourite new dog, Torgal, as a puppy, which I'm fairly sure Square Enix could sell a plushie of on their store, and everyone would just die to get one. Speaking of dying then, the game actually surprised me at quite a few moments throughout play, certainly earning its new ERS-B rating of mature. I can't go into much detail, but I will say that it definitely feels like a grown-up Final Fantasy, and it's frankly refreshing to see Final Fantasy grow with its audience, and in doing so I'm pretty sure that they're going to get even more people than they usually would. It reaches out to both new and old players of the previous games, and yeah, really sets a precedent that I hope they continue with these games.
Welcome home, Father.
Thank you, Joshua. You are well, I trust?
Yes, Father, much better. Today, Jill and I went to the Bailey to watch Clive's spa.
Is that so?
Let's talk about some of the other game features that I loved then, other than just the storyline. Firstly, the active time lore system, a great place to start. If you're a fan of keeping track of the storyline and backstory of characters in games and hate trying to remember something later, so you inevitably have to replay an entire chapter, then this feature is for you. A fully interactive bestiary, glossary, and thesaurus-like menu awaits you, and a smooth, painless feature that's easy to navigate, which I really wish more games had got. Imagine if Elden Ring had something like this. Oh my goodness. This was unlocked for me when I played in the player hub I could access in the demonstration. The hideaway then is filled with places to pick up side quests, unlock features, chat with the locals, do tasks like upgrade your armor and weapons at blacksmiths, progress the storyline through cutscenes, and even change the music of the area via an orchestrion, which some of you may notice has a certain familiar song as one of the options you can unlock during the progress of your quests. Now, I don't know if this is the only hub-type area in the game, and I'd imagine there are many others considering the size of what I was allowed to see of the map, but regardless, it felt pretty well fleshed out and acted as a nice respite area to collect my thoughts and prepare for the next battles, be those main storyline or side quests out in the world. And speaking of side quests, there's nothing more world building than populating your world with NPCs to help. This particular footage was given to me to use in this video. I didn't get to play this section myself in my demo, but it involves an open area just before the before-mentioned player hideaway zone and features a side quest to help this traveler by, yes, you guessed it, a delivery mission.
Give me an hand, could you? Typical. A bloody bearer. Just when I thought my luck had changed. Still, better a crumb of crystal than an empty hand, I suppose. Though it pains me to use another man's branded. Here, you understand me, don't you? I need your help. These blasted birds must have caught a whiff of my cargo, and now they've got me surrounded. And I was running late as it was. I've got something special needs delivering before the rest, but I dare not leave my cart untended. You couldn't run it up to Martha's Rest for me, could you? Needs to get there quick, mind.
Fine.
That's the spirit. All right. Here. You hand that to the stable master and no one else. I'm owed a little something for it. If he gives it to you, pass it along to your master by way of thanks. Be off with you then, and don't go taking any detours on the way.
And can I just say I'm incredibly proud of the person at Square Enix who actually played this for this video footage. They did exactly what I would have done. Completely ignore the man, walk off and look at scenery. So we get this beautiful look at some of the areas around here. The thing that really stood out to me in this game, again, visuals were like the main thing. This was on the PS5 and it looked absolutely gorgeous in the resolution we were playing. This is 4K footage. Again, we've had to sort of mess around with the video because some of the video given to me was 1080p and some of it was 4K, so whatever resolution this video ends up being maximum just as a result of that. But it looks absolutely stellar regardless of compression, including the YouTube compression as well, I think you'll agree. And that's what really captivates me, the idea of going to all of these different parts of a world, opening chests, discovering large open areas like this. Doesn't matter how they piece the storyline together, if there isn't a world to back it up, then the game isn't going to be as successful as other Final Fantasy games, and I'm pleased to say that from what I played and from what I'm seeing in this footage, I'm incredibly impressed. Next up then we have a fight. It just transitions, the footage transitions straight into a fight with a bighorn, so we're showing off some of the combat now. The combat, in my opinion, was some of the most fluid I've played. I haven't played a lot of action-based games, so this was a completely different sort of kettle of fish for me. What I can say is that in comparison to something like Final Fantasy XV, which I think is a good enough comparison since that's a action RPG as well, this plays 10 times better. I am much better off in this game, regardless of what, you know, accessibility options you have on. The game feels fantastic. Blocking at the right time, parrying, you know, just shifting between, you know, your spells, your actions, everything felt so incredibly fluid. It was one of those games you don't want to put down. You wanted to keep holding that controller, ignore the rest of the world going on around you, regardless of the fact that Yoshi P was literally walking around the venue, you know, behind us whilst we were playing this game. And you kind of ignore all of that because you're sucked into that game. And that's, oh man, I'm going to gush all over this, but it is such a fantastic experience that you can't really show. You kind of have to get the person to sit down and play it themselves. So hopefully at some point you'll be able to experience this for yourself. And if you want my opinion, fantastic stuff. Even though I traditionally don't come from the side of games that likes an action-based game, because I'm the sort of person that traditionally would like a turn-based Final Fantasy game, but this is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. They've converted me almost entirely It isn't just fluidity between the animations that makes the combat so good. A lot of people focus on how flashy the game is, but at the core concept, each of the combos fits together perfectly. The animation transition between you using a spell to using your deity's magic, for example, they're using Phoenix and Garuda magic in the background there. They're using each of those alignments, those shifts, those upgrade over time. You can put more points into that aspect of the game, or you could put more points into the damage you do and the other combos you have, so you can build your character very differently depending on your playstyle. For example, in my demonstration, I decided that I wanted to primarily go for sword combos, so I was doing a lot more sword combos than I was doing of magic. Even though there was no penalty for me using the magic, I had a much better feel of the blade. In between those combos, I was using magic. The accessibility options has to be probably one of the biggest things to praise about this game as well. I personally, in my demo, played on the normal difficulty with none of the accessories equipped. There are accessory slots. I think there's 4 accessory slots. Correct me if I'm wrong. I can't remember exactly. But each one of them has like a way of making the game more accessible to people and to lower the difficulty overall. One of them, for example, allows you to automatically dodge attacks. I think one of them automatically does combos for you. So essentially, you can make it to the point where you're just playing the game with a single button press, basically, and you're able to enjoy the full experience that everyone else has just by equipping that accessory. They've thought about all of the people that might want to play this, or obviously the age ranges with a more mature audience brings more people in, but also the accessibility of players who might be restricted by their age limitations in some other games with fast-paced combos, or they might feel like they might be at a handicap at that point, but they're really not. Be that your skill level. I'm not the most skilled player, but if I needed to, I would probably equip one of those accessories. But it's just really good that they're creating a game that everybody can get their hands on and have a different sort of experience with, but reality hits that it's going to be a positive experience. But yeah, the combo system was fantastic for me. I didn't feel like I was unfairly punished by a hit. I felt that there were a few iframes between certain attacks, survivability after a dodge, things like that. But at the end of the day, it just played really well. And when I did get punched in the face and my health disappeared, it was my fault to do that. And I could make the game easier to avoid that if I so wished to. So, pretty cool. Top marks from me, honestly, in terms of combat. Whilst I've been rabbiting on and you've been listening, thank you again, once again. We have some absolutely stellar footage being recorded from Square Enix employees here playing in the background. They have surely earned their place, because there's no way I could play as well as this without a considerable amount of time. So props to whoever it is behind the scenes that recorded this footage at Square Enix. But incredible. One thing you will notice with this footage, though, is that the variety of monsters isn't really that stale in comparison to a lot of other games that you might see come out. One of the things I will say in compliment to 16 is that every corner I went around in my demonstration, there was a different monster. Yeah, you had your packs of monsters like goblins, but then there were like different varieties of those goblins, slightly more hard-hitting ones. Then there was like boss type ones, like mini bosses, and then you had your traditional big bosses, you had your storyline bosses, and then you've got stuff that kind of looks a little bit like it would be a hunt mark. I know for a fact in the main hub there's like a hunt board, so it wouldn't be too surprising, and I think we've seen it in a previous trailer where there's been hunts revealed. I forget which trailer that would have been, or piece of footage I've seen, but that wouldn't surprise me if there's a lot of those because of how big these areas are. Just to give you a demonstration, if I was to compare it to a Final Fantasy game, it would be Final Fantasy XII, not on anything other than the map design. I feel that the maps are interconnected parts of a zone, so like each segment is a big open area full of possibilities, mob spawns, things like that, hunt marks, that kind of divergent, emergent gameplay that you want to find treasure chests, things like that, explore. Exploration is heavily rewarded in this game for items, but you also had like a much bigger section, so like transitioning between these places wasn't really a problem at all. It just kind of faded to the next area. So it wasn't just an on-rails corridor. It was nice, big, chunky sections, but nothing on the same scale as like Final Fantasy XV, where you had endless nothingness, in my opinion at least, where there wasn't as much content as maybe there could have been to fill the gaps, whereas this is more handcrafted, and you can tell that, you know, individually placed things and zones that feel like they've been, you know, sculpted and populated properly, which is a really good thing to say, I think. But that's exactly how it felt. Really good stuff. As you can see, we're slamming the ever-living hell out of some crabs here, which looks awesome. And then we actually get to pet the Torgal, because why would you not want to pet the Torgal? He's such a cute boy, such a good boy. Yes, he is. I can't wait to give him all the treats in the world and belly rubs. Oh boy, when does this game come out? Huh? Not soon enough.
Clear of its maw, my lord. That thing's breath is worse than its bite.
Next up then, we have a bit of footage of one of the major bosses that we actually played in our demo as well. I got to fight this. It was a lot of fun, actually. They don't show the full fight, unfortunately. There's lots of mechanics that you'd be familiar with if you played Final Fantasy XIV or other MMORPGs or more RPGs of recent. A lot of things were very much telegraphed, but there are also a few other things that you kind of had to look at the direction it was sort of facing and then react depending on that. So I would imagine some of the tougher monsters and bosses in this game are probably going to have like this, you know, the familiar sort of red eye of the behemoth, that kind of thing. Or I presume they will do. But yeah, there's a big focus on making things, at least you can see them coming to avoid them. As you can see, we transition into the last area of footage that we've got for this video today, unfortunately, but it's been a blast to share this with you. We had a lot more sections that we played, but we don't have footage of those that we can use. So yeah, this area is this dense, beautiful, rich, vibrant forest full of greens and yellows and just vibrancy that you don't find in, you know, everywhere else. And honestly, in any other game, I think this is probably one of the most beautiful looking forests I've seen in a video game in a very long time. I remember whilst I was playing it, I panned my camera to the canopy above just to look at the leaves fall between the light and you know, follow each beam of light down and see how it reacted with all of the different tessellated patterns on the floor. It really is just visually stunning. The last time I remember being stunned that much was a very, very long time ago by graphical fidelity, and yeah, it just looks fantastic. It plays nicely as well, and decent smooth frame rates, which I'm sure you could probably tell from this footage as well. It looked exactly how it played, in my memory at least. But yeah, this area is full of lots of different varieties of monsters, be that canine sort of creatures or plant-based things, and then it wraps up towards a really cool boss at the end of this, which they show, actually, which is kind of like an armadillo thing. Really, really cool area. Probably my favorite area in the demo. And that's another thing I will say, is the variety of locations was just, it was brilliant. It was fantastic. We had everything from sort of misty swamps to open big sort of calm lands from Final Fantasy X-esque big open areas, lush forests as you can see here, fire top sort of like fiery areas, hidden underground sections, crystalline filled like ravines, you name it. I was blown away by it. It was stunning. And then the towns themselves, you know, places throughout Clive's storyline as he, you know, as you're physically seeing him grow up, the places he reacts to. It really is quite a special game. As you can see in the background, we're looting some stuff here, and you can even send Torgal, your dog, to actually go and find things using his sniffer, and he's quite adept actually. In my gameplay as well, he found me a couple of pieces of upgrade material for my sword, so you definitely want to make use of your dog where possible. As you can see very briefly, there was a sort of Torgal menu. We can send him to sick a target, to ravage, to heal, but you can also access like a menu with your D-pad to make him go and hunt for items as well. And then we come on to the final boss then, basically, in the last part of footage for this video.
Not so sharp.
You'd better hope so.
It really was quite a special thing to see. This boss is awesome and gives you a great example of how well some of the stuff's designed and the variety between the different moves of the monsters. So this creature's Fafnir, which is like this weird sort of armadillo-esque thing that can crawl up walls. I was blown away when I first saw this and some of the moves that it can do. There's not a lot of footage left actually to show here, but one of the things is it can do this roll maneuver, like a special move where it rolls up the side of a wall, goes across the wall, and then you can actually, if you time it perfectly, you can parry the attack. So I severely underestimated, here it is, spin cycle. I severely underestimated Clive, but I forgot they had the power of literal gods at his disposal. I didn't get to do this, but as you can see, bam, look at that parry. That's incredible. And that's all there is of the footage. So let's just go over some footage you've already seen in the background as we wrap up. But I was blown away by the event and the opportunity to play the game, but more often than not, I think we should take pride in the fact that we have a game that's actually going to live up to expectations in 2023. We've been filled with so many disappointments, and I can safely say 16 will not be one of them. I was absolutely just blown away is an underestimation of the feeling. I was literal shakes, right? With the audio design, with Masayoshi Soken behind the soundtrack, a literal genius that's capable of conveying emotion in 2 notes in comparison to everybody else that, you know, tries to do it in 50. It is a genius. We've got the graphical fidelity. We've got the hardware power of the PlayStation 5 finally being utilized in a game by the looks of it. The gameplay itself being, the combat designed by someone who knows how that combat should look and feel, and the storyline written by, the familiar Final Fantasy geniuses behind the scenes at Square Enix. I was blown away. I can't overestimate enough how much I want to play this game. I've been literally living for the past month and a bit in withdrawal, waiting desperately for this game to come out. My pre-ordered copy is staying pre-ordered, and I would severely advise you to definitely try this out once this game comes out. Anyway, thank you once again to all of the event staff at the Tower of London, indeed from Square Enix and outside of Square Enix. Everybody there was absolutely lovely, was incredibly helpful with all of the needs and requests that I had. Any questions I had were answered. Yoshi P was there, Koji Fox, absolutely lovely people. And I couldn't have asked for a better opportunity, and it was definitely worth going down to London for. I was included in a interview as well. I don't know if that's going to be used, but yeah, hopefully it does. That was a lot of fun. They asked us whilst we were playing the game to come over and do little spot interviews, and the adrenaline that was running through my veins at the time will most likely be shown in that footage if it ever makes light of day. Oh dear, absolutely ecstatic. Anyway, much love. Let me know what you're excited for in Final Fantasy XVI. We've not got too long to wait now, and hopefully this video scratched a bit of an itch. And be sure to check out the other content creators. I'm sure there are plenty of people, now the embargo has lifted, revealing their thoughts and opinions with probably the same footage. So go check those out. And yeah, have a great one. The next few weeks are going to be unbearable. Much love, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.